This podcast is not a substitute for a relationship with your mental health professional. Hey, family. Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Health is a Lifestyle podcast with your girl, Andrea Wise-Brown. But this week, family, we have a special guest joining us, and her name is Janine Firpo. Did I say that correctly, Janine?
You did a great job. Yes.
Okay, good. But hold on, Janine. I just want to put this out there. If you have not joined the family as of yet, please do so. If you know you just scrolling by and you just happen to see us and you start to engage in the conversation, come on, join the family. It is free. All you have to do is click that little subscribe button, like this podcast, and share the episode with everyone that you know. Well, even if you don't do it with everyone that you know, at least share the episode. But we would love to have you here. And this week, family, I'm jumping right in with our expert. I am getting ready to introduce her. Let me tell you something. Please pay close attention. If you are a woman, this episode is specifically for women. And guess what, family? If you're joining us and you are married to a woman, then, and you're not a woman, I want you to hear it and share the information. Or if you have a girlfriend, or you have sisters, a mother, listen to me, share this podcast, because this is going to be powerful for women, Okay, Janine, so I'm going to put my little glasses on and I am going to read your bio. Okay. And this is just a short bio, family, okay? This woman is a powerhouse. But here we go. This is a little snippet of who she is. All right. So Janine Firpo is the author of the book, Activate Your Money. Invest to grow your wealth and build a better world. And she's the co-founder of Invest for Better, which is a nonprofit teaching women how to become confident investors who are impacting the world with their money. All right, family. So you guys hear me. We are talking about women and their money today. And this conversation is much needed, especially as we are living in the times now with this new administration. I have heard and have had several conversations with friends, family, and from a lot of my clients where there's this fear, Janine, that's really come up about money and what to do and investing and how to, and to make sure that they don't lose everything that they already have. So I guess I'm going to start off, Janine, with just asking you, So let me say this to you. I was reading the book. I actually listened to an audiobook, and family, the book is awesome. Like, this book is amazing. It's great for you if you are a new investor. It's great if you've never invested before, or if you haven't always invested, like ever. Like, this book, I thought, Janine, I believe that it is brilliant and it is timely. So I met you for a reason. So I don't know if you want to start off before I ask you a question, Janine. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Okay. Well, thank you first for having me here. And it's really delightful to meet you at the conference where we saw each other. And having you have me on your show is fantastic. My story is long and involved, so I will give you the short version. And the short version in how I got to where I am now. I had a 35 plus year career, first in tech in the Silicon Valley, starting before there were even personal computers. And then about 15 years into that career, I made a significant shift in what I was doing because I had taken a 5-month solo backpacking trip through sub Saharan Africa in the mid 1990s and saw unconscionable poverty. And I decided that somehow I wanted to work on solving that. And so I created a second career for myself, looking at the role that tech and business thinking could play in solving poverty. And I did that for over 20 years. And
Wow.
because of that work, and during that time, I worked for organizations like USAID and the World Bank and the Gates Foundation and corporations. I started my own nonprofit. I did a lot of different things. But what I also saw was that I'd made these huge changes in my career. I'd taken pay cuts. I'd done a lot to do work that really mattered to me. And I realized that my money was undermining me. And the way that I was investing was actually helping to create some of the problems that I and other people like me were trying to solve.
Mm.
So I made a decision over 20 years ago to figure out, how do I invest all of my own money, starting with my cash, in ways that align with my values and build the world that I want to see. Because our money, when we invest it, even what we've got sitting in the bank, is being used by someone for some end. And
Mm.
unless we're paying attention and being conscious about what we're doing, we are upholding the status quo. And I think that for a lot of us, the status quo is not what we want to see the future be. We want something different. We want a more sustainable, equitable economic model. We
Yes.
want a more sustainable economic way of involving interacting with each other and so on. So I'm all about, let's change that with our money.
No, I love that. And when you just said that, that just made me think about the part in your book where you mention, even for people who may not, women who you feel as if you haven't formally invested yet, that the fact that you are spending your money, or even if you have your money in a bank or wherever it is, like you are still investing. I thought that that was so good. That was a great point.
It's a really important thing. So many women don't have confidence as investors. They don't think they have enough at money. In fact, I read somewhere, I think the dollar amount is, women feel like they have to have $4,000 to $5,000 a month extra before they can become an investor. No, 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 no. In fact, first invest however much you've got. Start, just start. And the younger you start, the better off you are. So here's a really interesting statistic or data point: is if you are 20 years old and you start investing $100 a month, just $100 a month, for a lot of us, we can afford that, right? Not everybody can, but a lot of us can. And you do that for 10 years, then at the time you're 65, which is a traditional retirement age, although I think that's going to change big time, but we'll just use 65. By the time they're 65, a woman who did that will actually have more money than someone who waited until she was 30 to start investing $100 every month and did it for 30 years.
Mm.
Because of compound interest, because of the fact that when you invest and that money makes money, then the next year around, you have a bigger sum of money that's making money. And the next year around, you have a bigger sum. So, because of compounding interest, you want to start right away, and you want to start as soon as you can. And even if you don't think you've got a lot, just start. Just start.
Just start. Yeah, I love that. And I want to ask a question, but before I do that, I want to stay with this. Just start now. And you do speak about this in the book. What if there's a woman out there who's saying, well, you're right, Janine. I didn't think I had enough money to invest. And you're telling me to invest, even if it's $100 a month, right? But what if I have a lot of debt that I need to pay off? Do I pay down the debt first, or do I invest, or do I split the money and do both? What do I do?
That's a really good question. So, what I talk about in the book is, I say that there are some precursors to actually starting to invest. And one is, you want to make sure you have a budget. You want to make sure you're organized to a budget. You want to make sure that if you have debt, it's manageable debt. So you can afford to pay it off over time. If you are in a world of debt trouble, then you want to get out of debt first. And there are great books out there to help you do that. There are great podcasts out there to help you do that. What is really wonderful, in my opinion, is when I started doing the work that I'm doing, which is now about 7 or 8 years ago, there were not a lot of women who were talking about money or helping other women figure this stuff out. I'm really happy to say there's a lot more women now doing this. And I think it's really different when you're learning from a woman and talking to a woman about your money than when you're learning from a man. It's different. So if you're in a situation where your debt is overwhelming you, then please get out of that first. Get to a point where you can get manageable debt. Once you have manageable debt, then the other thing you want to make sure you have is you want to make sure you have a safety net in cash. So stuff happens, right? And we want to make sure that we have enough cash, liquidly available money, money that we can pull on right away if we lose a job, if we have an unexpected expense, if something goes wrong. Financial advisors advise us that we should have 3 to 6 months of our run rate. Whatever our budget is, that's your run rate. That's how much money you need every month to live. You want to have 3 to 6 months of that stocked away in a bank account. And then when you're kind of at that point, then that's the place that you can start investing. And some of us want a longer run rate. I used to keep a year of income because I was afraid it would take me a long time to get another job. Or I was like, you know what? I'm just going to quit a job and I'm going to go travel for 6 months. So I need a year of run rate. So I had a longer run rate than a lot of people might recommend, but you can find your own sweet spot there. And then when you have those basics in place, then it's time to start investing.
Okay. And so I'm going to be honest that I'm just thinking the average person, the average woman, man, but we're talking about women today, they don't have 3, 6, or even 12 months, you got me, of their, I guess, household expenses, monthly household expenses put away in the bank. So for a lot of them, I think hearing that would really be right. What were you going to say?
It's going to scare them.
Right, because then they probably would feel like, well, then I'm never going to invest. And so I'm not the financial advisor here. Right. I'm not. However, what would you say in that case? Let me leave this to you.
I think that's a really good point. And I think one of the things that a lot of people who do teach about budgeting and do teach about debt, one of the things they learned along the way is that part of the reason that they don't have money at the end of the day is because they're spending on things that they really don't need to be spending on. So thinking about that, I think, is really important. In my younger years, I lived way, way, way under my income. Way under my income. I did without things. I didn't buy new cars. I mean, I'm driving a 16, 18-year-old car right now, right? So I did things to make sure that I could save that money and then I could have some stuff to invest. Now, that said, I realize that a lot of people in this country are living pretty hand to mouth. And it's really, really hard for them to just even have a little bit set aside. I get that. In fact, I think half of the country wouldn't know where to get $500 if there was an emergency, right? So investing isn't necessarily right if you're in that situation. Budgeting and trying to cut down your expenses and get yourself a little bit out of that is really the first step. But if you're not in that situation where the other half of us are, then rethinking your spending habits, rethinking your budget can maybe help get you to a better place. And there are I'm thinking of a woman named Bernadette Joy, for example, who does a lot in this space and talks about how she and her husband, I think they were $300,000 in debt, something like that. And they're millionaires now. So there are people out there who can help you learn these skills.
Hey, family, are you craving snacks that don't compromise your wealth or your health? Partake Foods is a Black female founded brand making allergen friendly, better for you treats that are actually delicious. Find Partake at Target, Whole Foods, Walmart, and partakefoods.com because I'm not going to have to compromise on anything while I'm investing in my health. That's one less thing that I have to worry about. Oh, these are soft ones. So good. Partake. Yeah. No, I get that. In a book that I've read by Dave Ramsey, I know Dave Ramsey may not be everyone's guy. However, he has this new book out that's called, I want to say it's uh Baby Step Millionaire. I think that's the name of it. And I usually refer that, and people have really been receptive and changed their lives just with that book, within itself. So
Yeah, and there are several. There's a woman named Nashima who's written a book on this. She's a Black woman who also got a nurse who got herself out of debt and then started making real money as well. So, I mean, if you just look online and do a little bit of research, you'll find books around how to get out of debt, and you'll find them by men and by women. So, yeah.
okay. Great. So, I want to kind of expand on you saying that the way that women invest is different than the way that men invest. So, I want to talk about that, but I want to say that what I also learned in your book was that 45% of the millionaires here in the United States are women.
Yeah.
I love that statistic.
Great. Yes. In fact, we are going through the biggest wealth transfer this country has ever seen. And by 2030, which is just 5 years away, women will control $34 trillion in this economy.
Wow.
$34 trillion, which will be close to 40% of the economy, will be in women's hands. So and the thing to realize is that as women, there will be a time in our lives when we are alone, when we are either single longer or we are getting divorced more frequently. We live longer than men. We may end up in a situation where a husband dies. We have traditionally allowed somebody else in our lives, usually men, to take control of our money. And I know too many women who all of the sudden they decide they're going to get divorced, and they are getting the short end of the stick oftentimes, and they don't understand enough about money to really advocate for themselves. Or I know women whose husbands die suddenly, and then they're in a situation where all of a sudden they have to pay attention to the money. These are not times when you want to learn this stuff. You want to learn this stuff in advance, and you want to learn how to grow your wealth,
Yes.
both for your own freedom, but also as a way to pass something on to the next generation, particularly for populations for which generational wealth is not as much a thing. It's time to change that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yes, so can you please answer the difference between how women invest and how men invest?
Absolutely. So, interestingly enough, men, well, this may not be as surprising. Men take bigger risks. They shoot from the hip more. They are more enticed by the new shiny object, whatever that might be, crypto or whatever that might be. They tend to, and I'm speaking in gross generalizations here, please, but they tend to invest more in individual companies in the stock market. Whereas women they're slower to make the decision about what they're investing in. They're trying to be more strategic. They're more likely to invest in funds than in individual stocks. And they're not as likely to just be shooting for whatever is the next thing in the news. Rather, they will make their investment decisions and then they'll hold on. As a result, they do better in downturns because they're not that concerned. They don't sell, they're in it for the longer term. And
Mm.
what's really great is not only are their approaches different, they outperform men. So the way that women invest, according to several studies, one in particular from Fidelity that looked at 5 million accounts over a 10-year period, women are outperforming at 40 basis points a year. So we do better because we're just more strategic about the way we invest.
I got that. That's good. You mentioned in 2030, you said that there was going to be a huge shift in the wealth, right, in the United States. Now, I don't know if that statistic came up after this new administration, or was that the projection before this new administration? And if it was or wasn't, tell us, please help us, because I told you I was going to ask you this about what do we do now as women investing when there's so many of our rights that are being threatened, to be taken away. What does that even look like?
Yeah, I totally hear you. So the statistic came out before the current administration, but I don't know that the administration will stop it because the people that are going to die are going to die, and hopefully women will keep some of their jobs. I'm hoping that women aren't all going to start getting laid off, although that is happening in some places, right? But hopefully that won't be enough to change the statistic significantly. In terms of what should we be doing now, it's the same thing that I've been advocating for many years now, which is think about what you're invested in.
Mm,
So, let me give you some examples. All right. If you think about where you bank, if you don't know what your bank is doing, or if you're invested in one of the major banks, you are probably supporting private prisons. You are supporting the oil and gas industry. You are probably supporting deforestation. You are probably supporting a lot of things, and you are probably not supporting gender or racial equity if you're invested just in a traditional financial institution. There are many, many other options for where you can keep your savings and checking account. For example, you can choose a Black owned and Black run bank, for example. You can choose a bank like I do in my local community that is providing loans to underserved populations. And a lot of times we're talking about helping women and girls more because they need it more. So they often get more help in these situations, but it's offering underserved populations loans for homes, for education, for cars, for the things that they need. They have a very hard time getting those loans from traditional banks. So by making my banking choice, I'm serving my local community. And I live in Oakland, California. So there's a lot of people here that need help, right? You can choose banks that are all about climate change and helping to foster more climate friendly technologies. So there's many, many choices around that. The same thing holds true for every other asset class. And what I mean by that is generally most of us are invested in cash, in fixed income or bonds, and in the stock market. And there are options in all of those places that enable us to support the things we want. There are even social justice investments in the stock market if we want those kinds of things. So these things are possible, and we just need to know about them and think about them and then decide how we want to bring them into our overall portfolio, how much we want to own of different things.
yeah. So when I think, and I think that I'm also speaking for many other people, and this is just what we've been taught, right? When I think of investing in social justice, when we also have a system that pushes against it, and I'm thinking, am I actually going to make money? Is my money going to make money? So just from what we've been socialized to believe traditionally, right? Those banks that you're talking about, the institutions that have been here forever, and they're probably investing in things that are not aligned with our values, but we choose those because we want our money to grow, right? So I'm asking you, do some of these smaller banks, like, I guess my first question is, are they safe? Somebody is Uncle Johnny just going to take the money and leave? I don't know. That's probably the fear, because we invest in what we've heard for so long to be the safe place to invest. And will we make money with the said Uncle Johnny bank in the community?
That's a great question. And so, first of all, your money is insured up to $250,000 in a big bank, and it is insured up to $250,000 in the financial institutions that I'm talking about as well. So,
Okay.
yes, your money is safe in these smaller institutions too. You need to do your homework on them, but as long as they are either FDIC insured, which a bank or something called a community development financial institution would be, which is another form of bank. Credit unions are a great place to bank as well. Credit unions are also insured up to $250,000 under a different law, not FDIC, but something called NCUA, the National Credit Union Association. So, yes, your money is insured. You want to make sure before you bank with a certain bank that they are under FDIC or NCUA, but most of them are. In terms of are you going to get the same returns? Yes. In fact, some of my banks that I'm in, I'm getting better returns than the big banks. Better returns. The other thing is I'm getting better customer service.
Mhm.
When you call some of these big banks, you just go into an 800 robot thing and it's so hard to actually get a live person, and then when you do, it's so annoying. But when I call my bank, I get a real person pretty fast and they know me. So I think customer service can be better. Um, a lot of the other things that you're expecting from a bigger bank, particularly now with everything happening online, so a lot of these smaller banks have online capabilities. I do everything on my bank with a phone and my computer. So you're not giving up financial return at all when you think about a bank. In terms of the other asset classes I mentioned, in the stock market, there are many, many stock funds that you can invest in where you will get the same financial return or even better. There's over 20 years of research that has been shown that when you invest in the environment, you invest for social functions, and you invest for governance, ethical behavior in corporations, that you can get the same return or even better. So yes, you do not have to give up financial return. Some things that you may really want to support may not get as much financial return. That is possible. So you really want to do your homework. And we teach women how to do this in our courses, how to compare and contrast, how to figure out what you're invested in, and how to know what it's actually doing for you and doing for the world. And you may say, you know what? Like, let's say you say, I've got $50,000 in the stock market. I'm going to take 1,000 of it and I'm going to put it in a social justice fund. And that 1,000 may not make quite as much money as the other 49,000, but I really care about this and I really want some of my money invested that way. And the fact that it's going to make a few dollars less for me isn't going to matter. So some things absolutely 100% same return, some things that you may have to give up a little.
Okay, I got you. I got you. But you're still saying that in this climate now, what we should be doing as women, is there anything differently that we should be doing? Because I know you're saying invest, but is there anything, differently that we should be doing?
Invest your values. And women, because of the things that you said earlier, which is what we've been traditionally taught, and we all buy into that so much, it's like, stop buying into it. And I was saying this before this current administration, I'm saying it now. I think this is even more important now. And I think the current administration is trying to put things in place to stop us from investing this way. They don't want us to invest this way. They don't. And so what do we do now? We do. More of us do. We don't pay attention to, you shouldn't do this. We do it. Right?
Yes.
So, and I think collectively, first of all, there's something about how it makes you feel when you know what your money is doing. You start to realize that it's really doing really important things. It just makes you feel good. It's a great feeling to be so on top of your financial situation and to know that you're actually contributing that way. And by the way you spend too, the choices you make with where you buy, what you buy, etc. Um, it's a great feeling on a personal level. Collectively, we can have a huge impact. Huge impact.
Mm.
Part of the reason that we're seeing the administration trying to stop this kind of investing is because it's been so successful, in
Mhm.
my view. If it wasn't successful, if it wasn't making a difference, do you think these people would care? They wouldn't care.
Hmm.
It's
Got
making
you.
sense.
No, that's good. That's good. So when I think about um what we've been taught or what society has taught us, what we have been normalized to believe, that takes me to what I do, right? The psychology. And I'm thinking about the psychology of money. And I'm going back to women and how we see money. And it's all related to our personal stories during childhood. And I loved when you pointed that out in the book. So, can you speak a little about, the stories that we perpetuate from what we've learned as a child? And you kind of shared your personal story in the book.
Yeah. So I think it's so important that when we put women into these classes, we call them circles in Invest for Better, the nonprofit I co founded. We put women in, about 8 to 20 women together in small groups, and we have a facilitated learning process that they go through so that they can depend on and learn from and support each other in the process. And the very first meeting is all about our money stories, because I think that they're so ingrained in us, and they are so much a thing that we believe, that we think everybody's the same at one level, right? And it's fascinating when you start to actually sit in a room with other women and talk about the stories that you have about your money and the memories that you have about your money, and the way you show up. I mean, we have women take a little quiz. It's super fun, actually. And as a result of the quiz, you determine which of you get 3 of 8 archetypes that you are. So, for example, for most of my life, I've been something called a guardian, which means that I'm really afraid. I mean, I grew up at a time when women really were not doing as much as they do now in the world. We hadn't moved into the kind of roles that we have. And I knew that I was not going to be the woman who ended up marrying some guy and having that guy like become my everything. It's like, I'm going to become my own thing. And I was pretty sure I was going to end up at 80 eating cat food, living under a bridge because I didn't have enough money. I was scared most of my life. I had bag lady syndrome. And so I guarded my money really hard. But understanding that and then figuring out how you can move past it is incredibly powerful. And that's what we're doing.
No, I love that, Janine, and I love that you shared that, but I know that you shared a little bit more, so I just need you to say, please tell the listeners, where did that story come from? And the reason why I think that this is important, because with most people, when we talk about psychology, right? Most people don't feel like they have, family of origin issues, or they don't feel like they've experienced trauma when they really have, when they kind of sit down in front of me. And so I just love to teach people how just the smallest things in life that you may have thought was normal, so you think, oh no, my childhood was okay. And it was. However, it changed the way that you saw the world or see the world. So I just need you to add that other piece in, right? Why is it, Janine, that you were so afraid of spending money? And
I was the daughter of parents who survived the Depression, so I grew up under a Depression mentality. We were poor when I was a kid. My mother would drive miles to save a nickel. She clipped every coupon imaginable. I had hand me down clothes. We were poor. We had food. Sometimes my mom was worried, but we always ate, but we were not rich. And so I grew up under that kind of awareness. And as I was getting older, when I moved into my high school years, junior high school years, my mom got into the real estate business, and she started buying and selling houses, and she started doing better. So my mom ended up learning and making money. She learned how to grow her wealth. She did it through real estate. And my sisters and I were her crew during the summers. We would go in and rip out carpets, repaint houses inside and outside, refinish, clean up gunk. I mean, the stuff we used to do. But we helped our mom build that business. And so I learned from her I learned from my parents how to save and be really aggressive with my money in terms of budgeting and so on. And then I also learned from them how to turn things around and how to start to grow wealth too.
Oh, that's so good. That's so, so, so good. And I loved the way the way you pointed that out in your book about how we see money is pretty much it's shown with the amount of money that we have today and what we do with our money today, and if there's fear surrounding our money today, sometimes it is blocking us. Our story that we continue to tell ourselves is
Yes.
blocking us from having the money in our lives that we truly desire.
100%. Like another, I'm not this archetype, but another archetype is the star.
Mhm.
So the star is the person who wants to be on display and be on show. And so they just use their money really freely. They're the ones who, when you go out to like a group dinner, they buy everyone dinner because they want everybody to love them, right? And so they use their money as a way to help fulfill something in them, right? That's another important thing to recognize. So there are many archetypes that drive us, and recognizing what they are and then getting the support of other people to stop doing them, I think is really powerful.
Oh, I think that that is fan freaking tastic. Okay, so you mentioned your program, and you talked about the small groups. So I know that I want you to kind of talk about the program, and I'm just telling you, I want to join. So, talking about the program, but in addition to that program, I know that there's something special that you're also doing that I want to talk about. So, where you want to go with this? What question do you want to answer first?
Okay, well, I will talk about what we do first.
Okay.
So, Invest for Better is a membership organization. At the beginning of this year, because of the current administration, we decided to give membership away for free. So you can go to investorbetter.org/membership, and you can become a member for no cost. And that will get you involved. You'll start to get newsletters from us. You'll hear about every month we have guest speakers. You can attend those speakers free. We have partnerships with other organizations to help you. So that is free. That's
But
first.
no, before you please repeat that, please, Janine. Say it again. Where do we go to?
Invest for FOR better, investforbetter.org/membership.
Okay, I love it. Now tell us about it.
So that's that. The other thing that we do is where we started out is we started offering a course. We call it our Getting Started with Impact Investing course. It is currently a 6-part series. So you meet in these small groups with 8 to 20 women and a woman or two who facilitate conversations. And the meetings run every other month, every other week. So we're starting another cohort right now of Invest for Better clubs. We do it in April and we do it again in September. So we do it twice a year. And you will do a little bit of pre work before each meeting. So you will maybe read something, you'll maybe watch a video, you'll maybe fill out a spreadsheet of some sort or a form. And then you'll go into a meeting with a facilitator for an hour and a half. And you'll talk about the pre work that you did, and you'll go into small groups and you'll talk to other women about your money and the issues that are coming up. We go through things like your money stories. We talk about, if you're going to invest your values, what are your values? What would you want your money to support? We help you think about how you're invested right now, if you are invested right now. And if you've got a retirement account or a 401k account, you are invested right now as well. And then we talk about things that you could do differently with your money in terms of the kinds of things that I've talked about already. We also even go into private investing and talk about angel investing and doing investing directly in small businesses. The reason that we do that is because for those women who do have more money and who can take those risks of doing private investing, it's really important that we consider it. And many of us don't even know it's possible. I didn't even know that it was possible for me to do angel investing until I was 60 years old. I didn't even know that it was a thing. And the reason it matters is because if you look at all the venture capital that is invested in this country in a given year, only 2% goes to women
Mm,
CEOs. 2%. And only 30 points of 1% go to Black women
mm,
entrepreneurs. So if we want to support women and Black female CEOs, women have to start putting money into this. And a great example of this, and I love her for it, is Serena Williams. She was in a conference. She heard this statistic. She was like, women who look like me need to do something. And so she stood up. She started a fund. That woman has invested in 85 entrepreneurs now, and they are women and people of color. And not only has she invested in them, she's knocking it out of the park in terms of her success. She has 14 or 16, the last I looked, that are unicorns, which means those companies are worth over $1 billion. So she stepped up. She's like, I got the money. She stepped up. She started putting her money to work in a place that it really was needed. And she's doing a fabulous job for herself, both financially as well as for making change in the world. So, super important thing there too to think about. So we cover that kind of stuff, and then we really help you pull it all together. So that's sort of the course. I'm really excited because starting right now, again, we are taking a version of our course. We're upgrading it. Actually, we're making it better, and it is targeting Black women specifically. So what we're doing is we're going to have 9 circles that are going to kick off in April. Mid-April is their start date, but we're recruiting for members right now. And those women will go through this curriculum being led by a Black woman, and everyone in the circle is a Black woman. And the curriculum is being upgraded by Black people. And the whole thing is like specifically for Black women, because we recognize that there are different stories there, and there are different ways that some women want to relate with each other. And so we're doing this for Black women. We're super excited about it.
oh, I love that. Janine, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with all of it. I'm like, sign me up, sign me up. So I need to be in all of the programs. But let me ask you this for the listeners out here who do not know, and I'm going to say I don't know, what is, and you said you were familiar with it when you were 60. So what is an angel investment? Is that it?
Oh, it's a great question. So, an angel investor is a person who says, I'm going to invest some of my money in a business. So for example, you can either do an equity investment, and an equity investment is where you're buying a small part of a business. So I'll give you an example of one that I'm invested in. There is a woman who started a company, and what she is doing is she's taking old clothes or clothes that a clothing manufacturer couldn't sell, and she is reducing those clothes back to thread and then enabling new clothes to be made from the old clothes. So instead of the older clothes or the clothes that didn't sell going into the recycle bin or going into the ground or getting put in ships and sent to Africa, which is what happens to a lot of those clothes, she's using them to recreate new clothes. So I made an equity investment in that. I think I gave maybe $10,000 to her to help her grow and build that business. And if she's successful and she's able to either sell that company or she's able to take it public or in some other way creates what's known as a liquidity event, then I will get my money back. Okay. So that's one way to do angel investing. You can also do debt. So an example of that is there's a woman in my neighborhood who had a passion for bagels, and she wanted to start a bagel company. She's an engineer by training. She grew up in New York City. The bagel place that she used to love went out of business, and she said, I can't live in the world without that bagel. So she reverse engineered the bagel that she grew up with, and she ended up starting a bagel company. And when she did it, she needed money. So I gave her like, I don't know, maybe $5,000 or $7,000, something like that. And she paid me back every year, 8% return I got. And within a couple years, she paid me back all my money. And then she wanted more money to do even more. And I gave her more because she had come through. She was remarkable. She was delivering on what she said. And I'm making an 8% return on the money that I have loaned her. So that's what angel investing is. It's like making investments in companies that are not on the public stock exchange, and they tend to be smaller startup, or else you're doing a debt vehicle to them and giving them a loan.
Oh, I love that. Yep. I had no idea. So thank you for clarifying that.
Even starting a group in San Francisco Bay Area with the intention of those of us who want to invest this way getting together and starting to help support local businesses, right? Because the businesses in our community need money and they can't always get it from the banks. So we are thinking about how do we pool our money together to maybe help with that. And there's something called crowdfunding where many people can pool their money together and invest in these kind of companies for as little as $100. So that's also an opportunity for those who want to do it. It's work. I mean, it's not like this is easy, it's
Mhm.
work. But I have found that when you do it with other women, it's actually really fun work. It's really fun work. And when you meet these entrepreneurs, they're amazing. I mean, these are amazing women that I've met and talked to, and the things that they're doing are incredible. And you want to help them. You really want to help them. Uh, I think that the challenge, and I had this happen to me when I started, is you get really excited about what somebody is doing, and then you're like, okay, I'll give you money, and you don't think about, you don't do your due diligence. You don't really look at how likely are they to succeed, what's the competition. And so I have made mistakes where just because from an emotional place I've given people money and then they go out of business. I'm like, okay, lost that money. That wasn't good. But I decided how much I was willing to lose this way, and I've been using that capital.
Yeah.
So
And just as a sidebar, this just came up in my head, just a question. If you did, I'm just thinking one of your emotional times that you did an emotional investment, right? And if that investment fell through, can't you write that off on your taxes? It's
yes,
charitable contribution.
so you don't write it off as a charity. You write it off as a. You can write it off. It's different. It's like a loss. You write it off as a loss, and you can absolutely do that. The other thing, while you're talking about charity, because this is something I didn't really know either,
Okay.
I write about it in the book, and it's something called a donor advised fund. And so this is not for all of us. This is for people who have a little bit more capital and who are giving away a more substantial amount of your money. So a lot of times for us, we do charity. And what that means is somebody asks us for money, or maybe our church is asking us for money, or we hear about a big disaster that happened and we give money to that. But we tend to react at a time because of an emotional purpose. Um, we can also do something where we decide at some point in the year, you know what, this year I want to give away X amount of money. And I'm going to take that amount and I'm going to put it all into a donor advised fund right now. So you move all of that money into something called a donor advised fund. You get the tax write off when you move the money into the donor advised fund, but then you can give that money away whenever you want. It could sit in that donor advised fund for years if you wanted to. What it has allowed me to do is be much more strategic about where I give my money.
Mm.
So when I went through the exercise that we teach about how do you define your values, I picked 5 things that I want to support with my money. I want to support a sustainable environment. I want to support women, and I want to support social justice and racial equity. Those are primarily the things I want to support. And so I decided that I'm going to use my philanthropy to support the same things. And so now I know that every year I'm going to give to certain organizations every year, which really helps them because when they know that money is coming in, on a regular basis, it makes it much easier for that organization. And it's also easier for me when somebody asks me to, like, I just got something the other day about dolphins, and I used to be a marine biologist, so I love dolphins, but it's like, that's not one of my things.
Mhm.
So no. And it's easier for me to say no. Um, when somebody asks me something kind of out of the blue, or some request comes around for my philanthropic or charitable contributions, to say no, because I have a plan there, just like I have a plan with the rest of my money.
Gotcha. So stay in alignment with what your goals are, and be clear. It sounds like be clear about your goals, right? Your values first, and then your financial goals, so that you can stay focused. And although something else may come along and it might interest you, but just because it interests you doesn't mean that you need to invest there. Stay focused with the plan. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to. If you can change your mind, I'm not saying you have to be rigid about this. You can 100% change your mind, but it's easier if you have a plan and you stay focused to not just be distracted by everything, and then you can also have more of a sense of how your money is maybe having an impact too. So, right.
Okay. So, as we are winding down, I want to ask you, so if we can kind of summarize all of the great things that you've talked about today, and kind of, as I was saying, pull a plan together, right? So we're not all over the place with our thinking, and we can pull a plan together. What are the first three things, Janine, that you would say we should start doing first? Women all over should start doing first in
Okay.
regards to their money and growing their money.
It depends on where you are in your journey. So
Okay.
if you are, as we talked about earlier, a woman who's still in debt, get out of debt. Go find some of these resources, read some of these books, learn, start to do it. Just, I get that it's hard. I get that there are all kinds of obstacles, but you got to just do it. You want to be in a place in your life where you feel confident around your money and where you feel safe around your money. So if you're a woman who's in debt, get out of debt. If you are a woman who is already investing or wants to start investing, then start with a little bit every month. Just put aside some and start putting it into the stock market, and make choices that are values aligned. Don't even go, if you're just starting out, don't even go into stuff that's not values aligned. There's no need to. And if you want to, you could participate in our courses, or just use your web browsers and your search engines and ask for what are sustainable, good and sustainable investment funds, etc. I have some great videos that I've made. They're on YouTube under Invest for Better, that teach you how to understand some of the lingo and some of what is in your stock funds. If you're already investing, one of the most important things to do is to understand where you are right now. Where are you invested right now? And there's spreadsheets that you can use. We offer them. There's one that I have. My book has a free website called activateyourmoney.net. And in the end of every chapter of my book, there is a take action section. And everything that you are told to do in that take action section, you can go to activateyourmoney.net, find that chapter, and download the spreadsheets and the tools and everything I talk about on that website. It's all free. So get clear on where your money is right now. Where are you banking? How much money you have in the bank? What's in your 401ks? And not just, oh, I'm in a 401k. What funds are you in? Are they stock funds? Are they fixed income vehicles? Are they combinations of both? Get clear on how you're invested. That's the very next thing to do. Once you're clear on how you're invested, then use a tool called As You Sow, invest your values, and go look up your stock funds and see how they're graded on fossil fuel and gender equity and private prisons. It will tell you how that stock fund is doing across 7 different criteria, and then go find a stock fund that's better and think about moving your assets. Now, the thing to recognize about shifting your assets, the bank is easy. So it's super easy. You could easily find another bank. A great website to help you do that is called mightydeposits.org. I talk about this in the book and on the website as well, Mighty Deposits. There are some other ones too. Greenamerica.org has other banks. So you can find another bank and you can move your savings account there. That's an easy thing to do. A lot of these banks, it's super easy to just set up a new account. So look at that. And then your 401ks, your retirement accounts are good places to make changes if you're able. Because any change that you make in those accounts will not result in a tax implication for you. Even if there is growth, you can sell stuff off and you can buy new stuff really easily without having any tax hits. So looking there is really important. If you have a lot of your money in 401ks or retirement funds that don't give you a lot of options and there's no more values aligned options, and you're not with that company anymore, you can roll that money over into your own IRA or a Roth. You can take it out of the 401k. And once you have it in a general brokerage account, you're controlling, you have a lot more flexibility in terms of what you can buy and sell. So that's another thing to think about. If you have stocks in a traditional brokerage account that you're controlling yourself, always be very careful and look at any tax implications before you sell anything, because there could be significant ones. Like for example, I've been investing since I was in my 20s. I have one investment that right now the value is 95% gains.
95% gains?
Yep. So if I sell that one, right, I'm going to take a tax. I'm going to pay 30% probably or more, because I live in the state of California and they're going to take their bite too. So I'm going to pay a lot if I sell that fund, right? So you want to be really careful about that. So actually what I'm doing with that particular investment, that's what I'm using to do my charity. So I can take that money that has a 95% return and I can donate a little bit of it every year to my donor advised fund and then give it away. And I don't take a tax hit on it because I'm giving that money away. So that's another thing that you can do, right? Is you can actually, if you have really significant embedded gains in certain investments that you have, you can just give those to charity and then you don't get the tax hit.
That is freaking awesome. Like, when you just said that and you just explained that, right? How you can take all of those gains and then give back. Like, that made my heart feel good. It tingled. My whole body tingled. That's so good, Janine.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
That tingle that you have, that's how I feel about my money.
Oh, well,
I feel the stuff that I'm able to do now, and I've worked really, really hard to grow my own money. And the stuff that I'm able to do now, I actually do things that I know I won't make as much in return. I know that I won't. And I consciously do that because I can. And I consciously do that because I also think about, what is money for? And so when I can help another woman, when I can give her an opportunity that she would not otherwise have, when I can help build affordable housing or be invested in that, when I can know that my money is being used in my bank in a way that supports people in my community who are really struggling, that all makes me feel what you just described. What
one day I'm going to be there. Please tell our listeners, I want to say thank you so much for coming, and for sharing your knowledge. for inspiring us as women to grow, for not only inspiring us by what you're teaching, but inspiring us by you doing, by you living it. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference, those coaches that just talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And you do both. And I'm obsessed. I freaking love it. But I want you to please tell the family, the listeners, how can we find you? You mentioned YouTube. So tell us everything. How can we find you?
So the best way to find me, I don't do social media. I just find it way too toxic, most of it. So I am on LinkedIn. You can find me there. You can find Invest for Better on LinkedIn. You can go to investforbetter.org/membership to sign up to become a member. And we are telling people there how they can join if they want to be involved in one of these courses. You can also find that if you go to our website, investforbetter.org, and you look under Learn and you look up the courses, it'll take you to a place where you can also just sign up. And if that stuff fails for any reason, you can always email me. And my email is just Firpo, which is F as in Frank, IR, P as in Peter, O, @investforbetter.org. I'd be happy to hear from any of you.
Our meeting was intentional. And I know that if it was intentional for me, it's going to also, and it's creating a shift in my life, then it's also going to create a shift in some of our family members' lives too. I get it, because we are all connected. We are all connected. So thank you so much, Janine, for coming and spending this time with us today. I'm going to have you back. Maybe it's after the new program starts with the women in the pods. I am going to join one of the programs, if not all of them. I really am. And then maybe later we can talk about it. Maybe with some other rich women that I'll meet in the program. Who knows?
That's great. That sounds great. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I look forward to staying connected.
Absolutely. And family, that is another episode of the Mental Health is a Lifestyle podcast with your girl, Andrea Wise-Brown, and family. I will see you next week on the next episode. But don't you ever forget, I love you.